Hey, what is going on, guys? It's Johnny D and welcome to another Genshin Impact video. In today's video, we'll be reviewing Hu Tao since she just recently received her first rerun. We'll also be discussing about her best build, including artifacts, talent levels, weapons, and party compositions. The goal of this video is to help you guys build your Hu Tao to the best of your inventory's ability. For those of you who are still skeptical as well, or a new / returning player that's looking for a main DPS, we'll be discussing about her pros and cons as well to help you come to a decision. Before we do jump into it, guys, if you do like the video, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. This will greatly help our channel to grow and help with the YouTube algorithm and recommend the video to other viewers. These type of videos do take a long time to edit, and so any support is greatly appreciated. Now, without any further ado, let's jump right into it. So a quick disclaimer, but we are on my sibling's account because I currently do not own Hu Tao. Now, this does not mean that she's a bad character by any means. I am a light spender towards Genshin Impact, and so I do not have every single character, as much as I wish I could. For talent levels, this account is currently on 999. It should not come as a surprise, but you would generally want to get her talent level as high as possible. For the talent level order, I would prioritize her normal attack, elemental skill, and then elemental burst. You could also try to level both her normal attack and elemental skill evenly if you are low on talent materials. Hu Tao is a main DPS with insane amount of damage, and her main source of damage will be through her normal attack talent. Her normal attack, Secret Spear of Wang Sheng, is a 6-hit combo that does quite a lot of damage, but to maximize on Hu Tao's DPS, you'll generally want to use a charged attack. The charge attack is a lunge forward and travels pretty far. It also has a pretty strong multiplier at 228.7%. Hu Tao has the lowest base attack of any character. This might seem odd for a main DPS, but it's actually covered up by her elemental skill, Guide to the Afterlife, which is where things get heated. As soon as you activate her elemental skill, you'll immediately enter the Parameter Papilio state, which will automatically drain 30% of your current HP. She will gain attack stat based on her max HP while also infusing her normal attacks with Pyro. The Pyro infusion can also not be overridden. Charge attacks will apply Blood Blossom to any enemy's hit, and will take Pyro damage every 4 seconds while under this effect. Blood Blossom's duration is 8 seconds, making her pretty good as a Pyro applier for the team. Lastly, while she's under the Parameter Papilio state, she will gain increased resistance to interruption. Parameter Papilio will last 9 seconds and has a cooldown of 16 seconds. There's a 7-second cooldown where Hu Tao won't have her Pyro infusion along with all of those great buffs. This might seem troublesome, but just wait until we get to her passive talents. As we mentioned, the lunge from her charge attack travels pretty far, so to reduce the amount of N lag or long animation, you can try to anti-cancel by jumping or sprinting. She's also one of the few characters that have a unique sprint as well, allowing her to dash through certain enemies. For her elemental burst, Hu Tao pulls out a spirit and spins around, dealing AoE damage to enemies within the radius. When the attack connects and hits an enemy, she will heal a percentage of her max HP. The percentage will vary depending on your talent level, but at level 9 it will heal 9.71% of her max HP. That's not all, but when Hu Tao is under 50% HP, both the burst, skill damage, and HP regeneration will increase as well. The cooldown is 15 seconds and has a cost of 60 energy. Now, moving on to her passive talents. Her passive talent, Flutterby, increases the party's crit rate by 12% for 8 seconds when Parameter Papilio ends. This excludes Hu Tao, but are you kidding? Genshin Impact as a game generally wants players to rotate between characters to provide support or increase your overall damage. Not only is Hu Tao a monstrous main DPS, but she isn't a selfish DPS. She has party utility by increasing the party's overall crit rate. Each character you switch to will probably generally use their elemental skill or a burst, maybe even both, which will already take around 1 to 2 seconds anyway per character. By the time you finish with your party's rotation, her elemental skill will most likely already be up. This passive talent makes it easier to build your party and covers up Hu Tao's weakness by encouraging you to switch characters, in a game that already does. Just wait a bit longer because it gets even more nutty. Her next passive talent, Sanguine Rouge, increases her Pyro damage by 33% when her HP is equal or less than 50%. If you recall, her elemental skill also reduces Hu Tao's current HP by 30%. This makes it easier to reach the 50% threshold so you can get the attack boost and the now mentioned pyro damage. This is more than half of a goblet and complements her elemental skill so well. Just a tip as well, but you can set your Statue of the Seven's HP regeneration to a certain percentage. This makes it so when you use your elemental skill, you'll already be at the 50% threshold and gain all the bonuses from her kit. Lastly, when Hu Tao cooks a perfect dish, her last passive talent, the more the merrier, has an 18% chance to receive another suspicious dish of the same type. For Constellations, we are at C0, but we'll quickly review her Constellations to see what the benefits are. Her C1 is actually much better than some might think. When her elemental skill is activated, Hu Tao's charge attacks will not consume stamina. Though it doesn't physically increase her multipliers, it's still a very powerful constellation to have. One of Hu Tao's weaknesses is apparent when running low on stamina, because she uses charge attack to maximize her damage. Spamming charge attacks can leave yourself in a sticky situation when you're using your main source of mobility to attack aggressively. As a result, if you find yourself to be running low on stamina, you might want to pair her up with a shield character for harder content like the Spiral Abyss. C2 increases the Blood Blossom damage by 10% of Hu Tao's max HP at the time it's applied, and her elemental burst can now also apply the Blood Blossom. C4 provides more party utility for when she defeats an enemy that's affected by Blood Blossom. Once again, this excludes Hu Tao, but she will provide another 12% crit rate, but this time lasting for 15 seconds. Her C6 can only occur once every 60 seconds, but when her HP falls below 25% or when she gets hit with a lethal blow, she will still retain at least 1 HP. Additionally, once this constellation is activated, Hu Tao's elemental and physical resistance is increased by 200%, and her crit rate jumps to 100%. Think of this constellation as basically a berserk mode, giving you everything that you could possibly want while being unkillable. Overall, her constellations are pretty solid, but most players will probably look at C1 or C2. C1 definitely looks budget friendly and affordable. The ability to just spam charge attacks without consuming stamina just makes her incredibly flexible on the battlefield. So C1 is the constellation winner. Moving on to her artifacts, her best in slot is going to be the Crimson Witch of Flames. The overall 2-piece gives a solid 15% pyro damage, and the 4-piece increases your elemental reaction damage. Spoiler alert, but you'll definitely want to party Xingqiu with Hu Tao. He'll help her to do vaporized damage, which goes really well with the 4-piece set effect. Hu Tao's burst has pretty high multipliers as well, especially when you're under 50% HP, so increasing it with vaporize or melt will toast your enemies. Hu Tao is best when played with elemental reactions because of the pyro infusion she naturally has with her elemental skill. But in this scenario you don't want to use reactions, then Lava Walker isn't a bad option. The 2-piece is just a 40% pyro resistance, but the 4-piece increases your damage by 35% when the enemy is affected by pyro, which is pretty solid. Just keep in mind that if you use this set, you'll need to maintain pyro on your enemy. Otherwise, you'll see a lot of damage fall off. This set isn't the most optimal, but since it's the same domain as Crimson Witch of Flames, you might snag yourself a pretty good set. Shimenawa's Reminiscence is another pretty good option. Unfortunately for the 2-piece effect though, the 18% attack boost doesn't really help Hu Tao as much since her base attack is the lowest. But the 4-piece effect is where we're looking at. Though her main source of damage comes from her normal and charge attacks, her power spikes comes from the activation of her elemental skill, making it just as important. To use this 4-piece, the active character must first have 15 energy. Once activated, the elemental skill reduces energy by 15 and provides a 50% increase to the character's normal, charged, and punching attack. This matches her power spike during the Papilia state, but the downside is that it might delay your rotation with your elemental burst. For mixing and matching 2 pieces, Crimson Witch is a solid choice. Wanderers might not be a bad choice as well, since elemental mastery is pretty good on Hu Tao if you're doing reactions. For main stats on your artifacts, Sands, you can either go with HP or EM. I recommend HP since her kit scales so well with it. It will also help to further improve survivability. If you have 30k HP, then 50% of it will let you sit at 15k, which is almost max HP for some characters. For Goblet, main stat pyro damage, and Circlet either crit rate or crit damage, depending on whichever you need to reach your golden ratio. But you should try to at least aim for 60% crit rate for consistency. For substats, crit rate and crit damage again to reach the golden ratio, followed by HP and then energy recharge or elemental mastery. It goes without saying, but Hu Tao's weapon, the Staff of Homa, is going to be her best in slot. Actually, Staff of Homa is literally one of the best spears in the game for any character. The base attack from this weapon is 608, and its secondary stat is crit damage at 66.2%. This is absurdly high and even greater than a circlet. Hu Tao's character ascension stat is also crit damage, receiving up to 88.4%. This will definitely make stacking crit damage a breeze for her, but the reason why this weapon is absolutely bonkers on Hu Tao compared to other characters is because of the passive. Its passive by default provides a 20% HP increase and also provides an attack bonus based on 0.8% of the wielder's HP. When the wielder's HP is less than 50%, however, the attack bonus is increased by an additional 1% of max HP. Suddenly, stacking more HP on Hu Tao doesn't sound bad at all. Her elemental skill already provides an attack boost, and now with the Staff of Homa, this just further increases her HP and attack boost gained. Surprisingly enough though, the other 5-star options isn't as good on Hu Tao as it might be for other 5-star characters, and that's because of her low based attack. Most of these 5-star weapons in some shape or form increases attack, which isn't something that you want to build on her. If you want to increase Hu Tao's attack, then you're better off getting the Homa to build her HP and increase her attack that way, through the Homa's passive and her elemental skill. Her attack can be pretty crazy with both. The Jade Spear isn't a bad option because of its secondary stat of crit rate. On paper, the Jade Spear is actually a killer weapon, increasing both your attack and overall damage. This weapon is a viable option, but just not as good on Hu Tao as it might be for other 5-star characters. For the 4-star options, a good candidate would be Deathmatch. Deathmatch single-handedly provides a 36.8% crit rate. This is an insane amount of crit rate and the highest of any weapon. One of the complaints that many spear users have with Deathmatch is how low the base attack is, but this isn't a problem for Hu Tao. You'll mainly be using this weapon due to the high crit rate it provides, and not for its passive. Likewise, the Black Cliff Pole kind of runs into the same issue as well. Its passive provides an attack increase when the enemy is defeated. This isn't something to be excited for in Hu Tao, but this weapon still provides a 55.1% crit damage. Another good option is going to be Dragon's Bane. This one doesn't provide any crit rate or crit damage, but it does provide 221 elemental mastery from the secondary stat, and its passive increases your overall damage by 20% against opponents that are affected by Pyro or Hydro. This is huge because it allows Xing Cho to still party up with Hu Tao and trigger reactions. An honorable mention is the Lithic Spear. Though this weapon provides attack as the secondary stat, its passive does increase crit rate by 3%, stacking up to 4 times. Do note that to get the full stack on this weapon though, you will need 4 characters from Leeway. You get a stack for every Leeway character that's in your party, which can make it restricting when forming parties. Xing Cho will almost always run with the Hu Tao party, and if you have Zhongli as a shielder, then you already do have 3 Leeway characters when including Hu Tao. So this might not be as bad. If you have a high refinement on this weapon, then the crit rate bonus will just increase, making it that much better. If you're a new player and aren't able to get any of the 4 or 5-star options, then the 3-star weapon, White Tassel, can be a really good 3-star option. This weapon provides a crit rate of 23.4%. The passive also increases your normal attack damage by 24%. Refinement 5 is also very doable for this weapon, and it will increase that bonus to 48%. When forming a party around Hu Tao, you want to consider 2 things: how you can complement her and how to cover up her weakness. Since Hu Tao has access to one of the strongest elements in the game, that being Pyro, you really want to do reactions to maximize her damage. Automatically, a character that fits into this description is Xing Cho. Xing Cho is an insane support DPS and has very good off-field damage. With his burst, he's able to constantly apply and affect the enemies with Hydro. This sets up Hu Tao for doing Vaporize and getting the 1.5x multiplier. He also has some minor healing capabilities, which is great for Hu Tao. His elemental skill will heal Hu Tao for a small amount and reduce damage when hit. This will help her sustain and maintain her HP to the 50% threshold. As a result, you would generally want to keep burst healers away from Hu Tao. Instead, it's better to have a shield character, which leads us to our next point. If you have Zhongli, then you're pretty solid. You know, Rex Lapis, Morax, the Geo Archon, the one with an unbreakable shield that's basically a 100% uptime? Yeah, that guy. Zhongli has the strongest shield in the game and has a shorter cooldown than the duration of the shield. This makes him able to constantly reapply his shield for the team so long as it doesn't break before it's off cooldown. If you don't have Zhongli, then other good candidates are Noelle, Diona, and the original master of the Staff of Homa, Thoma. Wait, you guys didn't know? Noelle is a character that should be accessible for anyone and very easy to build because our inventories have a crap load of defensive artifacts. She also has some healing capabilities as well through her burst, and what's great though is that it's controlled healing. Controlled healing will help you maintain your HP to where you generally want it to be. And say you don't want to heal anymore, then you can easily just swap out Noelle off field. If you're going with Noelle as your healer and shielder, a good option for that 4th slot is actually Albedo. Similar to Noelle, Albedo is easy to build and can provide good off-field DPS. Not only that, but his passive talent also gives the party 125 elemental mastery for 10 seconds when using his burst. Having 2 Geo characters will also provide you with the Geo Resonance, which will increase your shield strength by 15%, and characters that are shielded will have the damage increased by 15%. Diona is another great healer and shielder that can apply Kyro to the targets with her elemental skill and burst. The issue you might run into with Diona though is overhealing inside her burst. I guess you can say it's controlled healing, you just have to make sure you walk out of the burst. Toma is a newly released character alongside Hu Tao's banner rerun. The cool thing about Toma is that both his elemental skill and burst provides a shield. As the saying goes, 2 is better than 1, and in this case will give Hu Tao more sustain. Kyro characters that has off-field damage and can apply Kyro onto enemies is a good option as well. The great thing about Kyro meeting Hydro is that it creates the frozen reaction. This allows Pyro to still hit hard with the 2x multiplier. Characters that come to mind are Kaya and Rosaria, which are both great options. Kaya's burst will follow the active character, making it easier to apply Kyro to specific targets, while Rosaria's burst creates a Kyro AoE field that hits targets inside. Similar to Hu Tao though, when casting Rosaria's burst, her passive talent will also increase the party's crit rate by 15% of Rosaria's crit rate for 10 seconds. This excludes Rosaria herself though. Ring a bell? If you have her, Ganyu can also fill a similar role. Her burst is insane for applying Kyro and has little to no cooldown at all if you can maintain her burst uptime. Overall, you can't really go wrong with anyone, and there are other characters that can work well with Hu Tao. I'm a strong believer that you should generally play the game how you want to, so experiment and see what works well for you and your playstyle. The greatest challenge with Hu Tao though is to micromanage her HP and stamina if you do not have her C1. Now we reached that part of the video where we will quickly recap some of the things we went over and talk about her pros and cons. As a main DPS, she still remains on top of the leaderboards and can deal insane damage. Not being a selfish DPS, she has some built-in party utility to increase the party's crit rate. This is very beneficial for when rotating characters during her elemental skills downtime. Her overall kit just works so well with one another, and she has one of the best synergies with her weapon, the Staff of Homa. Due to her character Ascension stat, she gets a flat crit damage increase, making her easy to build. For artifacts, she has a couple of viable options and even a best in slot, that being the Crimson Witch of Flame. Substats are pretty flexible as well since HP scales with her kit and EM is so strong for the Pyro element. She does not require Constellations to be good and can still fulfill her role. There are a couple selections for 4-star weapons as well, not needing 5-star weapons, if you can't afford the Staff of Homa. For cons, she needs to consistently maintain her HP under 50% to maximize damage. This makes it pretty risky because for harder content like Spiral Abyss, it can get very punishing if you are very low on HP. Charged attacks are her main source of damage, but consume stamina if C1 is not unlocked. This makes her exposed to danger on the battlefield if she cannot sprint. As a result, party compositions can't be restricted if she lacks the sustainability. You'll most likely want to have a shielder and someone with controlled healing. Despite the cons though, if you guys are lacking a main DPS, Hu Tao is honestly a great option. Having been released for quite some time, it's amazing to see how strong she still is. She's a high-risk, high-reward character, and if you like a challenge, then this character is for you. Spend time to master her and work on her animation cancel. If you struggle with managing her HP or stamina consumption, build your party to help with that sustain. If survivability is not an issue for you, then build your party to complement her strengths and output more damage. Building a party should come with what you are struggling with or needing more out of. But let me know what you guys think about Hu Tao and if you'll be pulling for her on her rerun. If you already own her, are you planning to chase after the Staff of Homa or C1? Those are some serious power spikes. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Don't forget to also turn on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any newly released videos. I've been Johnny D, and until next time, I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Who are you? Quick, do something!
order of duality, impermanence of fate.